So Façade, William Walton, Edith Sitwell. Do you know who was at the first performance?
No, maybe you do.
It was a private performance, right?
There were two first performances. One was at the Sitwell's home, and the second performance, which was their Succès de Scandale, was at the Aeolian Hall in London. At the first performance, which I assume was at the Aeolian Hall, Noel Coward, who stormed out halfway through and thought the whole thing was just terrible.
As one would expect.
Evelyn Waugh and Virginia Woolf.
Oh my goodness! Did they have their pictures taken or sign any books or anything?
That I don't know. But this is the legend of the first performance. The other thing about the first performance was how curious it was that Sitwell did all of the poems.
Right.
And she blasted it at the audience through a megaphone surrounded by a large curtain.
Reading herself, you mean?
Reading herself.
Right.
Actually, that's interesting because one of the record covers with Peggy Ashcroft actually has a photograph of her speaking lines into a megaphone. So maybe that's the reason.
That's
it
the
didn't
whole
make any
thing.
sense to me before.
So William Walton at this time, very young,
Yes.
largely unknown,
Right.
hadn't written his first masterpiece, the Viola Concerto, which is a few years later.
This is premiered, what, in the 20s?
Something like 23?
23, that's
So he really is a young man. He wrote it is said, as a satirical reaction, if that's the right way, to Schoenberg's Pierrot Lunaire.
Most certainly.
So what did he do? How was he sending out the master's masterpiece?
Different language, different style of music, and a different take on why this is valuable to do. I remarked to Ellen just a few minutes ago that this is funnier than Pierrot. Pierrot isn't funny at all. It's macabre. So what he tried to do was get a small instrumental ensemble of mixed different instruments that would find a way to blend, and then they provide a backdrop for narrative readings of poetry, which are supposed to, however, fit an exact rhythm, and in the case of the Schoenberg work, even have contour of up and down, the way my voice is sounding as I'm talking, but notated, called Sprechstimme. And a lot of people found the Sprechstimme off-putting at that premiere, including Stravinsky, who made this famous remark at the end of part one. There are 7 songs in each group, in Pierrot and also in Façade. You know, three groups of 7 pieces that make a kind of arc. And at the end of part 1 in the Schoenberg premiere in 1912, nobody said anything because it was very hushed and very quiet, and there's a long drawn E flat in the flute, and then you feel, wow, but you don't say anything. One voice in a row fairly near the front said in a fairly loud tone, "Oh my God, I wish that woman would stop talking so I could hear the music." And that was Stravinsky.
He was known for his bon mot,
yeah,
wasn't he?
And so people laughed. Schoenberg heard that there was a joke of some kind, and he was furious, and that began their lifelong enmity right on that moment. And more about that another time. But I think what I find in Façade is Walton doing what we could call a spoof or a send-off on this marvelous, funny, elliptical, quite clever poetry that isn't about the kind of states of being that the Pierrot poems are about at all. It's more entertainment. It's way more British in the sense of kind of a stiff collar and a great ability to tell a funny story. It even has kind of a British accent to it in the music. There are a lot of popular forms that he uses, tangos and popular songs, and there's a foxtrot. And so it's probably Walton's reaction to the Schoenberg on the basis that he found some of the Schoenberg worthy of being spoofed. That's how I read it anyway, and that's what I've always thought. And I haven't studied much about the scholarship behind this, but there's no doubt at all that it's directly a response to the Schoenberg.
And when you compare the two scores, does Walton go in for Sprechstimme?
No. What you guys are doing is in Sprechstimme. The two, Tony and Virginia, are going to be doing the narration, kind of back and forth, and then sometimes together. And we're going to be cracking smiles the whole time. We'll be a little bit in awe of their ability to go very fast with the syllables.
Sometimes.
Well, totally, totally. You guys have been fantastic, and it's probably a takeoff on what I think Gilbert and Sullivan called the patter song, where the syllables just fly by and you somehow pick up rhymes and you somehow pick up meaning. And you probably pick up a sense of what the words are saying, although it's going by so fast you might not unless you're listening very acutely.
Come to the drum out of Babylon, hobby horses bone, the dung scav rhinoceros dung. Watch the courses of the breakers rocking horses, and with glaucous Lady Venus on the setting of the horsehair sea. With Tennyson in laurels or the Gloria tree, and the borealic iceberg in Victoria she. You preserve the storm memorial to the colours of the Florion, the borealic iceberg for the
Nothing like that happens in Pierrot. They're so different that it's almost as if they were fourth cousins once removed, rather than, you know, companion pieces. They don't go well together on a concert either, by the way. I saw that one time, and it was strange. So there is a connection, though, and this is, of course, the 100th anniversary of Pierrot. I think yesterday, October 16th, the world premiere. And everybody's been thinking about Pierrot Lunaire this year, and there are many pieces that are responsive to Pierrot in the repertoire still. Schoenberg invented a new ensemble, flute, clarinet, cello, and violin, each one doubling another instrument, and piano, along with the Sprechstimme. And that today is called the Pierrot Ensemble, and it's sort of the basis of an awful lot of contemporary chamber music because it's a very good, viable ensemble. So Walton tried to invent an ensemble which was different. Here he has some instruments Schoenberg didn't have, a trumpet, a saxophone, a cello primarily playing the bass lines with pizzicato, nice percussionist, and it's more of a, I would call it a theater piece.
Do you think it's referred to as an entertainment?
An entertainment is in the title.
Do you think, and not only does it include many popular songs,
right,
but it also has quite a jazzy feel to it. Foxtrots are in there, but the whole thing has that sort of syncopated feel of the 20s.
That gets going there. That's nothing that Schoenberg would have ever thought of.
See, my favourite movement of all of that, and then we must ask Virginia for her favourite movement, is the one about Don Pasquito.
Yes.
I adore that one because he quotes a popular song known in England, maybe not so known over here, which goes, we hear it in the trumpet, oh, I do like to be beside the seaside, oh, I do like to be beside the sea, oh, I do like to be beside the pom pom pom, no, where the brass band plays tiddly pom pom, and he does this, and when we do it with the trumpet, and he's muted, I think, at that moment, I always think that he should have cotton candy in his teeth and a flagon of beer near his seat, because it has that sort of slightly woozy, sleepy feel to it.
This is what the trumpet player is a young fellow named Matt Ibisuzaki, who was very gifted, and he said, "Help me find the right mood. I've got to get exactly the right color for this." And I think he's done pretty well.
Yeah, he's doing extremely well.
Yeah. So it's filled with local color. Why don't we say that? And
and it's fun.
They're also, by the way, we're not doing all 20. Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and it's tuneful. I think Virginia actually has some of the best syncopated ones, like Ulcer Fork.
Ulcer Fork is...
Do us a bit of Ulcer Fork. Go on.
Really, it took me a long time to get this. Ulcer Fork, tall as... hold on. Ulcer Fork, tall as a stalk. Before the honey toots of dawn were ripe, would walk and stalk with a gun the rain-coloured sun. Among the pheasant feather caught the unicorn which fell on.
Bravo.
That's without glasses.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
There's some wonderful movements, and I have to say that they range from that wonderful comedy, almost Monty Python-esque, I think, some of the lines, comedy, to really quite poignant movements, like A Man from a Far Country. Which doesn't seem terribly politically correct today, but just in the context of the poetry, it's really quite beautiful. And I think also the instrumentation that he's used for that, which is totally different from the other musicians.
A lot of people talk about the poetry of Sitwell, who was one of the great English aristocrats and characters of that, and a real eccentric, that in fact these are nonsense poems, like Lear. but they're not at all. When you really start drilling down in them and you find out where those wonderful moments are, and when she is just able to create a structure with wordplay and word creation, they are intensely creative and I think amazingly inventive and funny. And they can be very poignant.
I think you have to get to know them, though. When we read them first through, it just made no sense, and we thought it was, just crazy poetry. When you actually take the trouble to learn the words and to really look at them, it's actually really amazing use of words. Yeah. Really quite incredible.
That's a parallel to Pierrot, and I suppose to many of the great vocal works. John Harbison always likes to say, in the beginning was the word. Meaning that, when you have a vocal piece, it starts with those words, and the composer who responds to them can highlight them in a way that they might not be highlighted even just as read alone. And so there's a lot of language activity here that is going to engage everybody's ear and sense of humor and wonderment even. And there are quite a few of them that are very touching. So it's a lighter quality of being than anything in Pierrot, probably more lighthearted.
So remind us how many of the numbers we're doing.
I think we're doing out of the 21. I believe we're doing 15.
And if we did absolutely every single number, not that we're going to, how many would there be? Because he seemed to keep discovering things that were thrown out and not included at the first performance that she had taken away. There must be, 20 or 30?
There's 21 poems, which is, of course, the number of songs also in Pierrot Lunaire. I decided not to try to tackle the whole thing. It's about 45 minutes. And when I've heard it all the way through, either in recording or in concert, it seems to me that after a time, you begin to feel that you've heard the sonorities before and that it's getting a little redundant toward the end. This is only a composer's take. I could personally be quite wrong here. But I like that we've curtailed it slightly so that we get more variety. One of the great things about Pierrot certainly is that there are no two songs that sound any bit alike, and it's because he uses selective in and out for the different players so that the instrumentation is always changing. I think once you hit number, maybe it's 14 here, the last 8 pieces are all for everybody. And so it seemed to me practical and maybe even desirable to do what we might call a very sizable selection of songs from Façade, rather than the whole thing. Now, I could get chewed up for that, and maybe I will, but it seems to me the right call, given our timelines, given the way the pieces relate, and the fact that the 15 songs we are going to do are going to take 30 minutes anyway, on a concert that's fairly substantial. I think it's a good call, myself.
I personally would agree with you.
Oh, I'm so glad.
We both would.
All right.
Now, I'm going to say something about John. Not only is he a joy to work with, but he also has perfect pitch, and I believe he has perfect rhythm as well. So
closing in, I hope.
We've been having a lot of fun, just the three of us, rehearsing our individual numbers and some of the numbers that we share as well.
Yep.
And what John is able to do is, not only does he give us the beat and the cues and keeps us in rhythm, but he also sings all the instrumental parts around us.
Yeah,
which is really helpful.
Oh, okay. I can do things like that. The pitches won't be right, but I get the rhythms.
You do the clarinet solo.
Yeah, I did that. I did. Yeah, sure. It's because I love it and it's in my ear. There's been a very nice kind of activity in the president's office on Thursdays at 3:30, isn't it? No.
Yeah. 3:30.
3:30 to 5.
Yeah. And now we've had 3 or 4 weeks of that. And I think we're going to still be doing it some more.
We will.
And I'm very happy, and it's a joy. What you're all going to find, if I could say something about Tony and Virginia, is that they come from the culture that this music came from, and they understand it sort of deep in the marrow of their bones, and they have the pronunciation also, which is certainly British and which lends credence to all of the vocal sounds that we're going to hear. And now what's happening is that they totally have command, and I think we're going to be very impressed with this.
We're still working on the command element of this. So let me try a word out on you. The difference between the separation created by the pond of the Atlantic. I would say satyr. What would you say?
Satyr. I probably would say satyr.
Satyr.
Instead of ear. The satyr sound.
But the way that she writes it is satyr.
Yeah.
Rhymes with flatter.
There you go. Well, she comes up with some rhymes. You know, there's what is that? You have to say the word wind, and if you're going to get a rhyme, you would say wind. And we weren't sure which way to go. Should we bring out the rhyme, or should we pronounce the words correctly and let the listener imagine the rhyme? And there's some of each in the poetry. He calls
Number the doltish, coltish wind, nuzzle my hand for what it could find.
There you go.
Yeah.
My favourite, very favourite rhyme is this one. From Sevilla, his menteed bride and young friend. Isn't it?
Yeah,
Sevilla
what
and
page is that?
menteed.
Is that the Don Pass?
That's
Yeah, page
Paso
38.
Doble.
Yeah, the Paso Doble. And then do the polka one, because I like that.
Okay.
Tra-la-la-la-la.
I need my glasses.
Give me a number on that one too. You guys know this better than I do. 13 for the polka. Shall I do some singing here?
Yeah, why don't we do the percussion?
Sure. I'll do the percussion and then I'll do the afterbeats, bass and the afterbeats. Tell me if this is the right tempo.
Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. See me dance the polka, said Mr. Wag like a bear, with my top hat and my whiskers that tra-la-la-la-trap the fair. Where the waves seem chiming haycocks, I dance the polka there. Some Venus children in their gay frocks, maroon and marine and stare, to see me fire my pistol through the distance blue as my coat, like Wellington, Byron, Marquis of Bristol, buzzing great flute. While the wheezing hurdy-gurdy of the marine wind blows me to the tune of honey rudely sturdy over the sheets of the sea. And bright as a seedsman's packet, with zinniest Candytops chill, is Mrs. Marigold's jacket as she gapes at the indoor still. Where at dawn in the box of the sailor, blue as the decks of the sea, Nelson awoke, crowed like the cocks, then back to the docks sank he. And Robinson Crusoe, the bright foxy beer, but he finds fresh isles and a lady smiles, the poxy doxy dear. As they watch me dance the polka, said Mr. Wag like a bear, in my top hat and my whiskers that tra-la-la-la-tap the fair. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la.
Yay!
You can see we've had a lot of fun.
I just think we'll be doing this, not just the three of us, but with a group
whole
of
band.
six musicians as well.
Yeah,
This is a
exactly.
concert not to be missed, Jordan Hall, November the 8th at 8 o'clock. See you there.